Hi, everyone. I'm Haidi. I am from adMarketplace. I lead the marketing team there, and we are a search advertising company on the open web. I'm so excited to have Amy join us today and talk through your journey and your career and all of the leadership and women leadership lessons that we can learn from you today. So to get us started, we'd love to start at the beginning on your path to CEO at Digitas. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of some of the key milestones, decisions that really got you there?
Thank you for having me, and I hope lunch was really great. My first job actually was an analyst at American Airlines. I went to SMU, which is finally broke through in the top 25, by the way, big deal for any SMU people. And I was really more of a quant than a qual, and I worked for American Airlines in yield management. Anyone know what yield management is? Amazing. Okay. So that's basically the person that when you go up to, you go to check into your flight and it's overbooked, there's someone that's in HQ that's like basically gambling with the flights. That was me as a 22-year-old out of college on yield management. What was important about that is I basically grew up following the data, to your question on leading to getting to Digitas today, which is very much about a data-oriented agency. And also really taught me about customer service, because the first thing that American makes you do is instead of staying in HQ, you go work the flights and you're a gate agent. So I was a gate agent for a month working Miami, JFK. And so it really teaches you that everything matters, which really set me up to understand the decisions you make really impact everyone else around you you may not see. And also really sort of made me fall in love with the concept of customer service. So then I eventually left American and went to an agency, and that's when I started in the agency world, and then have gone from there.
Wow, so almost the reverse of most people, where they start at agency and then go in-house to the client side.
Yes, yeah.
And then we'll find you afterwards today to figure out how to talk to gate agents so we can get upgrades.
You're really nice. You're really nice.
Lessons. Okay, great. So can you share a memorable moment in your career where you kind of defied expectations and really surprised yourself or some of the others that kind of came about, and really what those expectations and the decisions led you to?
Sure. I would say that the first thing that I think of is actually that agency that I work for was acquired by Omnicom, which all of us were kids. We're like, that sounds so neat. What's Omnicom? That's neat, right? So that was a really big sort of growth moment where we were a small agency, and the job was, how do you scale inside of a massive holding company? How do you build out a practice around, and this time it was retail and shopper, very much focused on the final mile. So building that up inside of the holding company and becoming really a practitioner. So that's a big grow up moment, going from being in a founder-led organization into, a holding company, and how you navigate that environment and really represent not only yourself and do good work for clients, but then you're representing the agency as a brand inside of that environment. So I would say that was a critical moment for me, really seeing not only being a fantastic client, like servicing the clients well, but the importance of also representing your group in a larger world that I knew nothing about. When you're learning about advertising, no one really tells you about that part of it versus the work. So I would say that's the first thing I think of.
That's great. And how do you, how did you navigate that within a much larger organization with several different agencies? Like, were there certain people or certain mentors that really kind of guided you there?
I mean, we're talking about women's leadership, and I had I was very lucky. I worked for a female CEO, Sharon Love, who's fantastic. So she was very good about, leading the way, but in a very feminine way, which I really appreciated. And that's something that, if you know me, you know that's definitely my go-to-market for sure. I definitely wasn't one that wanted to run with the boys, which at the time, I mean, most holding companies are more male-oriented, so that was important. And then, of course, my thing is you just focus on wins and growth. So yes, there's the political nature of things and making friends, but also the more you lead and win, so the agency grows, or you win new clients, or you stick your neck out and run a hard pitch and raise your hand to do that, then that gives you more street cred, and then that allows your agency to grow, and then you get more and more opportunities. And the last is spirit of generosity, which is part of me as a human. You do deals with certain agencies, and you pitch together, and all of a sudden the revenue doesn't go your way, and you're like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. Don't call me ever again. And then the minute you do that, you establish yourself as someone that isn't necessarily someone that can be taken advantage of, which I think is really important as you're growing up in your career.
Yeah, and how do you kind of frame that up for, even someone on your team today, right? How do you kind of guide them through the failures to get to their next success and to kind of keep being confident so that they can really shine through and just take this as kind of a lesson learned?
My dad was a military person before he was in oil and gas, and he had this great military phrase, which was nothing to it but to do it. And that's my mantra. It's like, just do it. I mean, and so if you fail fast, who cares? And don't lie. That's my big thing. Like, if you lie, and then that's tricky. But if you do something and you try it, and you with best intention, my expectation is do the things and come back and tell us about them. There is no such thing as perfection, and I think that's a culture of the working environment we're in, and so it allows everyone to do great things.
Great lessons, and I think. Speaking about female leadership, especially in the position that you're in, what are some unique qualities that you think women really bring to marketing leadership or in the marketing industry as well?
Women are incredibly intuitive, and I think that sets you up to be empathetic for both the consumer, with the work you're doing, as well as to be able to read the room. I think, which is hard to put to articulate as a thing, but I think that's really important on the EQ and what you bring to a group is one. I also think women are really great about doing lots of things at once, and I think that helps when our world is chaotic. I'm sure, if anyone's over at Adweek, there's a bazillion partners and this and that and new launches, and the marketing world is really chaotic. So I think in particular, being a leader in the marketing space and the ability to sort of digest new things and try them and have multiple streams going at the same time is a really important quality in terms of how you work and just general work ethic.
I noticed that you avoided the word multitasking.
Yeah.
Was there for a specific reason, or?
Well, I don't like saying women are good at this and men are good at that. So I think it's more about being able to do lots of things. I think by nature of, if anyone has kids, you know what it's like to make dinner and answer emails and do all those things. I don't think that's necessarily gender oriented, but it's important that you're able to do all those things at once. We talk about everything everywhere at all at once, and I think that's a really important lesson for everyone here, that you just do the things and don't think that hard about it.
Just get it done. Just do it.
Yeah, get it done, and if it's a disaster, don't do it again. But that's a little bit my thing. And don't lie about it. Yeah.
Trust and safety and honesty.
Yes.
Got it. Cool. So, what are some strategies you found effective that have been effective in advocating for yourself and some of the other women leaders within Digitas today?
Yeah. One thing I really focus on is for women to bring another woman along with them. I think there are too many women and we talked about this, that tend to want to be the only one. So my thing is find someone else to bring with you into that session, that conversation, into that room, so that you're showing the way for someone else is the one. Two, women are not great about advocating for themselves and asking for raises. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for the 100 women that are in your industry, so you're establishing the right baseline for everyone. That's really important. So think about everyone else if you have a hard time advocating for yourself. And the last is not saying I'm sorry all the time, which women do, and it really isn't great. Oh, and fourth, taking notes. Most women take notes in meetings and men don't. And it's a signal that you'll do the work. So that's really important, how you think about your presenting yourself depending on where you are. I'm not saying don't take notes, but you understand the point of women tend to lean in and do the work, and you should make sure you're giving work to everyone in that room, not just you doing the work so you said you did the work, which I think a lot of women do, and it's not positive for your career.
Yeah, those are some really great lessons, and I think really practical use cases for every day. But back to, kind of your first point, which was bringing another woman along or bringing others along in your journey. Can you give us an example or kind of a time when that's, happened to you as another woman leader?
Sure.
Kind of brought you?
I mentioned the female CEO that I work for, Sharon Love. She's amazing. And at the time, there wasn't really a lot of female leadership at Omnicom. So she worked with the generation above my generation to create Omni Women. And that was really the mantra of Omni Women, which was across all the agencies. And the idea was she was the exec sponsor for the agency, and then she brought one person with her. And so that was me. And so then that let me meet a lot of other, CEOs and other people inside of orgs or clients that I wouldn't necessarily have met. And then, we then replicated that at the region level. And so that was a really good example in learning on just bringing someone along with you and showing them the way.
And what is the makeup of the leadership team today at Digitas?
That's a great question. We are at 60% female, 40% male.
And how many in kind of the, direct reports or leadership roles to you?
That's of the leadership team, that percentage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting. More of the capability leads are female, and those that are running the offices, the split is more male than female. But it's pretty balanced.
Yeah, that seems very balanced. And I think, some of the lessons you've taught here and talked about here today is really kind of resonating with, I think, everyone at Digitas, because at adMarketplace, we recently had our own event. And, I mentioned Valerie, one of the Digitas leads, attended our event. And the feedback that we got at the end with the survey was, I would love to see more female speakers. I would love to see more diversity on it as well. And I think for us, the takeaway was we started counting how many females were presenting this day, and is that the right number? Is that even the right way to think about it? Why should we start counting at this point, right? It should just be a kind of blanket approach where you notice something and there's nothing said about it, right? Where there's enough people that you wouldn't even notice that there weren't more.
Yeah, I think it's important. We shouldn't be counting anymore, but we still need to. Because you're overcorrecting for someone's asking that question for a reason, and everyone wants to look up and see themselves, however they're defining themselves. So, I will take that back too and think about that in terms of how our leadership team shows up with the, broader population at Digitas.
Yeah. Great. Great. And then talking about company culture, what are some of the kind of positive cultures that you feel like you've influenced within Digitas and some of the female leaders within the company as well?
So when I became the CEO of Digitas 18 months ago, one of the things that I did was look at our culture. And interestingly, when you go on a listening tour and you meet everyone talks about the culture differently. Everyone says, Digitas is amazing, born in 1980, which I think is cool. But then everyone says that we have amazing culture. I'm like, great. Well, how do you define it? Well, it's just amazing. It's like, okay, so what does it mean? Well, is it that we're friends? So no one really had words, which I think is really important. So we established the 3 words that I think I represent as a leader and as also the way we do everything at Digitas. Fearless, inventive, and generous. And those are the things we use to filter the type of talent we bring into our org, the type of clients that we want that are willing to partner with us to be in that same space, the type of partners we have, and are we able to create fig moments? And unicorns love figs. See, it all works together. We call ourselves unicorns. So this was a little bit of me establishing a North Star for us so that we started to have a consistent culture across offices as well as across the globe.
That's great. And then from that culture and from kind of the full organization, what type of examples do you show them for advocating for yourself, for being fearless? And what are those examples that kind of really set the way for everybody else to feel comfortable and trust and safety within those decisions?
Saying no. That's one. Inside of any holding company, there are lots of things they ask agencies to do, and so saying no and coming back and saying, I said no, we're not doing this, and explaining that matters, because that means you're being fearless about protecting that decision. The work we put out, I think in particular, the work we're doing for Sephora, for Crocs, is very fearless in terms of finding new places and spaces where consumers are and really pushing the bounds of culture. So to me, that's a great example that we're, supporting that and wanting to advocate for more of that. And I also think how we work inside of the group. So we are very generous with our other agency partners and how we pitch together and how we behave, and we go the extra mile, which matters. And so that shows up, and then if you are, in spirit of partnership and you do great work together, then you'll maybe get invited to the next pitch. Like, it's also a revenue generating mindset as well. Right. But I think that's something that I cascade, and then I really expect everyone to do as well within the appropriate boundaries.
And how do you think that kind of resonates with some of your clients? If there's a certain pushbacks or even saying no, how do they kind of handle it, knowing, Digitas's culture and some of the, kind of words associated with your culture?
Clients want you to say no. I think it's a powerful word. They want to understand your point of view. They're hiring you for your point of view. So the clients that I work with know that I will say, that's not a good idea for you or your brand. That's what they pay us for. And I think, the idea of, someone said to me that being a great client leader is similar to being a chef. So you show up and I know exactly what you want and I make it, and you say this was wonderful, versus being a waiter or a waitress. And especially in our business with the rise of AI and all the complexity, this is really important. It's a people business. And so just like your partners or your community, you want people to say yes and no to you. I think it's the same. You can't say no to everything, and you also can't be ridiculous about things. But, I think the clients want us to have a point of view. And our agency partners inside and our industry partners want us to have a point of view. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I think the no on the ridiculous asks are usually what's best. All right, switching gears a little bit. What's kind of a piece of advice that you've either taken or not taken that you feel like really kind of led to a lesson learned or a better decision along the way later on?
I would say other people in my sphere have said, if something is happening at work, to just blow everything up, really raise hell about something. And that's just never a good idea, ever. I've never seen that work for anyone. Right. You know what I mean? Where someone's like, I would go in and I would tell them, and you're like, I kind of want to do that, but I don't think that's going to be good.
Yeah.
The outcome's probably not going to be there. Yeah. So I would say that's like the consistent advice that you get from someone, and it seems like you should just go in and do that, and that's generally not a good idea. I like the idea of, that it's better just to leave things unsaid, even if it's really hard for you not to say it, is important. Most people get in trouble for saying too much versus saying too little. And so I think that's an important thing to think about, being really disciplined in some of those moments and how you handle it. It's a long life. I'm sure everyone here is like, hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you for 10 years. And then if you blew it up 10 years ago, you're like, oh, remember that time? So I just think it's really important to try to be very disciplined about the choices and things you say, even if you feel like you have the right to do that.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful tool in your toolbox.
Yeah.
To be able to hold back instead of releasing it all,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And almost you're better in power because of the unsaid.
Yes. It's a little bit, like the phrase, let them. That's one thing when someone is just going crazy. I'm like, just let them. It's fine. Just let them, because it's going to play itself out. I would say the best advice is to say yes to most of the opportunities that come your way, even if they feel scary. Say yes, because you can say yes and then eventually say no later. But I do think it's important to stretch yourself. Even if it doesn't feel like something you can accomplish, you can pretty much do anything if you put your mind to it. So say yes versus I can't do that.
Great lesson. Switching over to mentorship a bit, we'd love to hear a little bit about what Digitas either has in place formally or informally. As someone who, started out as kind of an entry level at agency side, having a account director that was female that took an interest and always had a door open anytime career advice kind of come in, vent, that was super powerful to my career and how I viewed kind of female leaders within the spaces and being fearless and brave and saying all the things, but also carrying you along. What kind of programs do you guys have either developed or you implemented?
We have all kinds of things. We have a formal mentorship program so that you're established with someone either in group or in Digitas. So that's group wide, which I think is pretty fantastic. So if you wanted to learn more about, the Publicis Media pillar, for example, we sit in the experience pillar. You can then request a mentor there, which I think is really important to cross-train yourself. And then within Digitas, we also have more formal mentorship. So that you have someone that you can, I call phone a friend, which I think is really important. And then we also have them to the level of, new working moms or all of those different types of really important special interest groups that you want to have a little bit more of a mentorship about not only work but life change. Digitas is very forward thinking in terms of supporting all the communities and how we, enable everyone to get what they need.
And it's all volunteer based?
Yes, yeah.
And kind of the next level for, some of the more junior folks, what are some of the feedback that you kind of hear from those programs? And
exactly what you just said, that, everyone likes to have a phone a friend, and they like the fact that they can get time and attention from someone that's been through it. I would say that the most feedback I get is about first, like moms coming back to work and sort of pro tips, because that's a scary time, or parents in general, and how you navigate it, and it feels daunting. So, and usually 6 months later, someone says, "Thank you so much for telling me not to feel bad about my 2-month-old," or, whatever. I'm like, they're not going to remember anything. Children don't remember anything under the age of 5. It's fine. And when someone said that to me, I'm like, you're totally right. I don't know why I've been torturing myself. So just things like that makes everyone feel like they're not as weird as you feel when you're in those isolated moments.
Yeah, I think a lot of the rise of social media trends has shown me that I'm not that weird anymore.
No, you're not weird.
All right, kind of the last question from me. How do you define success for your career, for, kind of the success of Digitas these days? Is it, obviously there's the straight revenue and new businesses kind of coming in, but, some of the soft skills and some of the soft KPIs, I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Growth. If our tour is here, it's a growth. No, it's all about, growth, but to me, it's the right kind of growth, so that we're doing that work that's fearless, inventive, and generous. Digitas is an amazing agency that I met with. Any of you that know David Kinney, he was really the founder of Digitas. And he really inspired me. And he said, when we established Digitas as a direct marketing agency, it was really about Digitas eventually taking over the internet. So he said, so I'm expecting you to figure out how you're going to own AI. I'm like, wow, that's a tall task. So it really left me to say, okay, what does that mean? So what it means for me in success is, how are we thinking about protecting the agency world? Agencies are great. We don't want everything to be managed services. We love agencies. It's really important for young talent. How are we setting up new models, new training, so that the new talent that comes into Digitas learns how to use AI like we learned how to use Excel? And I think that's really important, because we owe it to that talent to not be afraid of it, to lean into it and guide our clients just like we've guided them through the rise of everything else. And so to me, that will show up in clients wanting to come to us, as well as success measured by great work, happy clients, happy talent, and then of growth, of course, of the agency.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. I am going to turn it to the audience for any questions they may have for you. Any questions? Okay. Go ahead.
Hey, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Quick question on the AI front. How do you think AI blends with storytelling? Or how do you think you are going to use AI to create more powerful stories in the future?
I love that question. Thank you. We've been playing a lot. We launched Digitas AI, and we've thought about it by capability type. So we have 5 big things we do at Digitas: media, creative, et cetera. So to your question on storytelling. One of the things we've been able to do is build out personas using Epsilon data. So that, let's take the trend girl math, for example. So we built out a persona of someone that actually interacts with girl math. And what does girl math girl want for dinner? What kind of car does she want? And then you talk to the persona to then figure out what kind of stories will resonate with this cohort. So, and then you can find that cohort through media. That's a very simple example, but I think that's really fun, and it's really fun to see creatives have almost like, they're fake focus groups, but you get the idea, is one. The second is when you're using any of our creative tools, you get to see all kinds of weird things that come back. Right, so we would define those as territories. So if we're creative, you would brief in a bunch of teams, and then they would come in with a series of territories. So now those teams are basically leveraging the tools, and then creatives say, wow, I never would have thought of knitting as a territory or something weird. And so that opens up really interesting pathways for storytelling as examples.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Sam Moyakoya from DirecTV Advertising. You had mentioned that you do a lot to create space for women to like leverage their intuition in the workplace. You feel like that's a value add. What have like your best managers done in order to create that space? Obviously, like that example that you just used in terms of how you're leveraging AI to create personas around girl math. Clearly, like within your organization, you've created space for women to do this work. Like, what advice can you give, and what best practices do you have around making sure that you create an environment that creates that space?
To me, it goes back to trust and safety, and yeah. So if that's an example of something that came out of our social team. We also have built something called SWOT, which is share worthy and trending, and it's how do you, for a client like Crocs, lead culture, break culture. So that team came up with an idea. And they pitched it, and I was like, that's a good idea. We should try it. And it works. And so now it's scaled. So to me, it's a little bit of having that mantra of nothing to it but to do it, and actually really being that way as a leader within your organization, that there are really no bad ideas. What is bad is not having new ideas. And I think that's a little bit of the culture of Digitas. So that's an easy thing to do within the type of talent that wants to come to Digitas as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Amy. It was
Thank you.
such
Thanks,
a pleasure.
everyone.